In Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, Ben Solo finally sheds the skin of Kylo Ren, returning to fulfill his destiny in the light as the Jedi he was always meant to be. Following his redemption, Solo rushes to Exegol, desperate to find Rey to save her from the Emperor and to let her know that he is with her now, that no matter what happens, he is here and he'll stand with her till the end. For the first time in his life, Ben Solo finally understood his purpose, and he would fight with everything he had to fulfill the duty he had now been called for. In the end, Ben would succeed. He would destroy all who challenged him in his mission to join his other half, and to stand with her in facing the revived Darth Sidious. However, Ben would be quickly discarded by Sidious, and the Sith Lord's ultimate defeat in the end would come at the expense of Rey's life. But Ben Solo would not be denied. From the deep, dark chasms of Exegol, broken bones and all, Ben would claw his way back to Rey. His body was broken, but even in this moment, as he stumbled toward the lifeless corpse of the only person who'd ever really understood him, that small, ever-present flicker of hope remained. For years, it had been a hindrance for him as he tried to escape his past. But now, having reclaimed his rightful place in the galaxy, it would pay off in the most unthinkable way. Ben collapsed in front of Rey as his broken ankle failed to support his body. She laid motionless, her skin pale, the life drained from her eyes. She was dead. Without Rey, Ben had nothing. He was nothing. He knew what he had to do, and he was happy to do it, no matter the consequence. He didn't know if it would work, he hardly knew what he was doing, but he had to try. And so, he readjusts his position. One hand supports Rey's neck while the other graces her womb. He leans into the Force, acting on pure instinct as he pours everything he has into her. Ben himself was barely clinging to life. He shouldn't have made it out of that pit, let alone been able to muster the strength to do what he was about to do. But Rey was not supposed to die here. He would make things right no matter the cost. He dug deep within himself, the Force guiding him as he transferred all the life he had into her. And then, by the grace of the stars, Rey's hand reaches to meet his. She's alive, and together the two warriors revel in their newfound sharing. But just as soon as they discovered it, it was ripped away. Ben had done what he'd come here to do. Rey was safe, and he'd finally shown her the man she'd always known he was on the inside. It wasn't perfect, but it was what he could do. There were no regrets. He'd make this trade 1,000 times over. And so, he falls back, relieved to have given Rey back to the galaxy, and prepared to bear any and all costs. His body hits the floor gently as Rey guides his fall, and then the Force calls him home. Ben Solo disappears from the physical realm, but through the Force, he assures Rey that he will always be with her. When The Rise of Skywalker first came out, I resented the fact that Ben Solo was not standing with Rey at the end of the film. And as some of you may recall, a lot of my early content was focused on Ben Solo's potential to reappear in future Star Wars projects. My very first video, in fact, was about why I thought Ben Solo could have actually been alive at the end of Episode 9. And I think I will always feel that keeping Ben alive at the end of the film would have been a better, more fitting conclusion to this trilogy, regardless of whether Episode 9 remains the end of the Skywalker saga, or if Disney and Lucasfilm opt to pump out another trilogy at some point. However, something that I have lightly touched on here and there, but never really gotten into on a deeper level, is the reason for which Ben Solo's ultimate sacrifice, which resulted in his death at the end of Episode 9, is actually sort of beautiful. And it's because of the very nature in which his return takes place, as well as his motivations for coming back. Now, Ben's return is the result of a large culmination of many factors, but his sole intent upon his reawakening is saving Rey. He does not care what happens to him, as long as she is okay, he's okay. And we have multiple moments at the end of the film where Rey is not okay. When Ben arrives on Exegol, she is facing this dire ultimatum where she is essentially convinced that she has to turn to the dark side in order to save the galaxy. And she's ready to do it, but Ben's arrival saves her. And then things become even more pressing when she literally dies and leaves him to face the galaxy alone. In Ben's mind, and in the way he feels internally, he's been alone his whole life, and Rey is the one person who just gets him. She has lit his pathway back to where he is now, and she is his way forward. So without her, he doesn't have anywhere to go. He's just lost. And it's not like a selfish thing. It's not a matter of, oh, I can't go on without her, so I need her to come back and save me. It's, I simply need her to be okay. With me or without me, she needs to be alright. And Ben doesn't actually know what's going to happen here. He might die, he might not. He doesn't really understand what he's even doing. It's instinctual, but he also doesn't care what happens to him. His sole focus is on saving her. He gives her his whole self, fully willing to die for the cause. It's a beautiful thing to see a character who has been lost for so long finally find his purpose and then put himself out there completely in order to fulfill that purpose. And in doing so, Ben Solo fulfills the promise he made to his grandfather in The Force Awakens. In Attack of the Clones, Anakin proclaims that he will learn to stop people from dying, and in Revenge of the Sith, he upends the entire galaxy in pursuit of his goal to prevent what he believes is a threat of imminent death for his wife, Padme. In the end, his turn to the dark side is the very thing that causes Padme's death. But now, so many years later, Anakin's wish is realized by his grandson, who is able to save the love of his life only by channeling the light side of the Force in its purest, most selfless form. And that aspect of this is a beautiful, beautiful storybook finish to the most epic and emotional saga of all time. Now again, let me say, I don't think this was the perfect finish that it had the potential to be. Ben Solo is one of my all-time favorite characters, and we've only seen him once he's freed himself from the shackles of the dark side, of course, for all but a few minutes on screen. But at the end of the day, the sacrifice itself is an extremely powerful moment. And I would prefer to focus on that positive note now. It's not perfect, at least not for me, but it's impactful, and that matters. And let's also acknowledge that Ben Solo transcended into the Force, where he is granted eternal life. And in that way, he will always be at Rey's side. Becoming a Force ghost is a rare and very meaningful thing, and I think a lot of people, including myself at times, tend to lose sight of that. But that is going to wrap things up for me in this video, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a like to support the channel, subscribe to the channel for future Star Wars content, and of course, may the Force be with you always.